Welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Danny Cannell. I'm Chip Patterson, coming to you live at youtube.com/cover3 and all across the 24/7 Sports Facebook network. Thanks for hanging out. Smash that subscribe, smash that like, and come and join us in the chat. Why? Because this is a listener interactive episode. This is a mailbag episode. And a reminder, if you would like to add a question to the big old bag of mail, the best way to do it, let's leave a 5-star review, and in that review, put your mailbag question. Coming up later on, some questions around Shedeur Sanders at Colorado, the role of apparel providers in college football recruiting, expectations for BYU in the Big 12, and much more. But we begin, Danny, with probably the biggest headline that we're going to get in all of college football, because Bill O'Brien, former Alabama offensive coordinator, former Penn State head coach, former Houston Texans head coach, is headed back to New England to link up with Bill Belichick, to link up with Mac Jones, and to be the new offensive coordinator to the Patriots. Now, there is obviously now a huge hole in one of the most important staffs in all of college football, but it's one that we've been looking at for a while, right? I mean, we've been talking about Bill O'Brien needing to make a change. Where is Nick Saban going to find a new home for him? Maybe he put in the call to his old buddy, Bill Belichick, and was like, hey, what do you think about this? This is a win-win situation. So I want to start with that. Clearly, it's not a surprise the way we've been talking about Bill O'Brien and his future with the Crimson Tide. What do you think happens next for Alabama?
Oh, they got good options. You know that. I mean, Nick Saban, it's going to be an attractive landing spot for a lot of names that are out there. It's a massive year for Bama. I mean, I've been pretty vocal. I don't think it's the end of the dynasty. I think it's the end of the dominance, right? Mm-hmm. And we saw that start to creep in this year. And I think you're going to see that continue to erode, the dominance. But this is massive. And I think when you look at dynasties coming to a close, it's like, do you miss on quarterbacks, or plural, because I do think it takes a couple, and do you miss on coordinators? And we have both coordinators leaving Alabama, but like you pointed out, this is good news for a lot of Bama fans. They're tired of seeing the same offense and seeing Pete Golding's defense get torched by Tennessee and others, and Georgia. Pick your offense that's torn them apart. I'll say who I would call number one, but I think there's zero chance it happens.
What's that?
Dan Mullen. I think he would be my first call if I'm Nick Saban. What's your interest? I think Dan Mullen would say, thanks, Nick. I really appreciate the opportunity, but I am having a great time doing what I'm doing. It's very low stress. And I remember I had a conversation with Dan Mullen on the radio show. We were doing breaks. He comes on right after us. We were just kicking it around. And he was telling a story about how, his last year, he started to look at other coaches after wins. And he's like, you couldn't tell. He's like, so I really want to make a point of enjoying wins and enjoying success. I'm like, if that's what he's looking for his next job, I would not recommend going to Tuscaloosa, because no one enjoys their wins less than Nick Saban, right? He is all business all the time. So I don't think it's a good fit. I think it'd be a phenomenal hire. If somehow Saban's able to pull that off, watch out. I might pull back the whole dynasty is coming to a close statement. I think he makes a lot of sense.
I think we've already heard, by the way, some reporting that Dan Mullen is happy.
Good.
Yeah. He's happy spending more time with his family. He's happy getting into the broadcasting. And I think that he's enjoyed it enough that, and this is something that maybe you can even speak to. We don't need to make this a Dan Mullen cast, but when you start to get into the industry, one thing that I've heard from a lot of former players and a lot of former coaches is that you can like it and you can want to get better. And, you get a little taste of it and you're like, okay, so this is, in the same way that you approach, game planning or studying a playbook or trying to figure out what to do, you start to figure out the way things work. And that was the report that I saw, was that Dan Mullen was really enjoying broadcasting and wants to continue to do it, because we all recognize him as being very, very good on TV. And he can get even better. And I think that he's probably way more invested than that, than going into the high pressurized situation of being Nick Saban's offensive coordinator.
And guess what else is going to happen? As he gets better and better at broadcasting, he gets a bigger and bigger platform, and his star continues to rise. His coaching star, like he becomes that much more attractive as a coaching hire. Look at Sean Payton, like in the NFL. He is the hottest commodity right now. And a large part it's because a lot that's transpired, but I can envision a scenario if there's another SEC job that comes open, wherever it is, that Dan Mullen would be target number one to go after, especially if he's another year in, at ESPN and he's calling games and he's doing studio, he's doing all of it. Absolutely. He'll be one of the hottest coaching figures. So I think for a lot of coaches that have gone to the Saban Rehab Center, to get their careers revived, they've kind of had to, right? I mean, whether it was personal issues, whether it was they kind of had fallen on hard times and maybe they weren't as, hot names.
Well, it's like Lane Kiffin got left at the tarmac. Steve Sarkisian had personal issues, and they've obviously both rebounded into some of the better jobs at the Power 5 level that you can have right now. I mean, there is an opportunity for a rebound for sure.
Yeah. So that's where I don't think Dan Mullen needs it. I don't think he needs a rebound. He's already rebounding right now as we speak, as he becomes more and more attractive on TV. I see Larry in the chat said,
yeah, we're going to, I was going to ask if Saban has any translators that can go to Thailand and be able to go get Cliff Kingsbury out of there.
I'm sure he's got a jet that's fueled up, ready to go if he wanted to go that direction. I don't know if the system makes sense for what Saban wants to do. I also think you have to find a coach who's and I think this is why Garrett Riley didn't go to Texas A&M. I think he goes to Clemson and it's, here's your offense, do whatever you want to do. I am not going to mess with you. And I don't think that happens at Alabama. I think it's, you're going to be the offensive coordinator, but you're going to have to answer to Coach Saban in many situations when you're formulating the game plan on game day, during game day. If you're throwing it too much, if you're not doing what he's wanting, you're going to have to answer to him. And that's where I think Cliff Kingsbury at a point, and not only that, but I think the system fit is not good. You know what I mean? I don't know if that air raid system is one that Saban really would be doing jumping jacks for.
Have you started to think about the quarterback outlook and how that may or may not play a role here? Because there is a baby Dan Mullen out there, and I don't mean baby in terms of being a younger one, but Brian Johnson is currently the quarterbacks coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, and he was a quarterbacks coach, offensive assistant under Dan Mullen at Mississippi State when Dak Prescott was there. Win those offenses, of which Mullen's definitely the architect. Brian Johnson, that experience plus good gravy, what he's been able to do with Jalen Hurts and what that Philadelphia Eagles offense has been looking like, especially here in 2022. You might have to wait a little while to go and make that hire, but if you make that hire, then it also has me looking at Jalen Milroe and it has me looking at Ty Simpson. And that's another place where this fork is a little bit interesting when we look at the Crimson Tide in 2023, because Milroe clearly the way that he was used was as almost like Jalen Hurts' freshman season when it was very much a passing threat, but this is a running game and being able to utilize the way that he can make a difference with his size, 6'3", 225. I know they ran the ball almost as much as they threw it in that Texas A&M game. In total, a lot more than they threw it, but running it with Milroe a good bit too. Like Brian Johnson, the work that he's done with Jalen Hurts, that one is sort of bubbled up as one that if we don't hear a lot of movement on this early, I would not be surprised if he's going to be someone that they at least want to talk to before going and making a move.
For sure. He's a very hot name. He's even getting talked about to make the jump just from Philly as the quarterback coach to a head coach. Like that name has been out there. I don't think Jalen Milroe is the quarterback next year. I think it's Ty Simpson or somebody else. Just watching Jalen Milroe's skill set. I mean, I did see film of him at the bowl game running some routes at receiver. I think Saban's going to utilize him somehow, but I don't think he's their quarterback. I could be wrong. I don't think he's the quarterback next season. If you did go that route, Brian Johnson is an option. Greg Roman, who just resigned at the NFL level from the Ravens, they had a parting of ways. He had a lot of success going all the way back to Stanford with Harbaugh, so he's had some collegiate experience, then had a lot of success with running quarterbacks with Colin Kaepernick of the 49ers, and then obviously with Lamar Jackson with the Ravens. So I think that's a name to look out for. I'll give you one who makes a lot of sense too, Jeff Lebby.
Yeah.
Now he was the hottest name that was out there coming off Ole Miss. Do you feel like it's cooled off somewhat? I mean, they still, at the end of the year, Dylan Gabriel got it going back, but considering he was in the SEC West, considering what Ole Miss did while he was there, and even their offense took a setback when he left, I think Jeff Lebby makes a ton of sense if he wanted to get that gig.
Ty Simpson was a 5-star prospect coming out of high school, ranked as the number 3 quarterback in his class. He is someone who could sit back there within that Lebby offense and sling it around in a way that could be incredibly prolific, and where we could see the Jeff Lebby system really be able to click. Like, Jeff Lebby hired does lead me to believe that Ty Simpson's going to have a leg up in that battle and is probably going to be the quarterback for 2023. We still have to answer the wide receiver, situation, as we've seen a lot of players leave Alabama, and that position hasn't had great development recently. But I think I'd make that move if I was Jeff Lebby. Like, if I was Jeff Lebby and I'm looking at Oklahoma making the move to the SEC, wouldn't you rather be linking up at Alabama than be with Oklahoma as Oklahoma makes the splash into the SEC? I mean, have you talked to Dusty? Is Dusty talking about Jeff Lebby and the potential candidacy here? All right.
For sure. Now, Dusty wants Lebby to stay. Obviously. That's his, like he wants him to stay. But I think if you looked, I mean, you're coming off a 6-7 year with Brent Venables. And, there were times I think Oklahoma fans were even pointing the finger at Jeff Lebby. I'm sure that didn't feel great, and Dylan Gabriel came in. Now, the finish was great. They kind of finished strong down the stretch. But yeah, job security. Like, if you want to be that next head man, like, the future is unclear at Oklahoma with how they bounce back, right? Year 2 of Venables, there's a ton of pressure on you there, and you wouldn't be surprised. Like, it's unclear. At Bama, like, worst case is probably your 9-3 or 10-2, and you might still be catching heat just like Bill O'Brien did. But look what happened to Bill O'Brien. Like, he still got a job as an offensive coordinator in the NFL with one of the best franchises there. So yeah, for job security, trying to parlay it, like if Lebby, which I do think he wants to be a head coach, like, he goes there in 1 year, if Bama's back on track and they're back in the SEC title game and the offense is clicking with Ty Simpson, who I do think will be the starter, then yeah, Lebby's going to have a tremendous opportunity. And if he wants that opportunity, Oklahoma, don't you think they have to go 10-2 like this year and show like a ton of improvement for him to get the job that he wants? Not just any job, but the job that he wants, which would be a really good Power 5 job.
The one good thing that they have at Oklahoma is Jackson Arnold. The huge 5-star, top 10 overall player in that 2023 class, coming to Oklahoma, and no doubt coming with the idea that he is going to be running Jeff Lebby's system. So, like, that would really sting if Lebby ends up leaving. It would sting for Jackson Arnold. It would, the reason to stay if I'm Jeff Lebby, or not to just automatically be sliding my resume under the door, is to know that you've got a chance to be able to take that launching off point because of the success that you expect that you're going to have with a player of Jackson Arnold's ceiling being right there in Norman. Do you think there's any weird candidates out there? Anything that could catch you off guard?
The mystery name?
If he promotes internally, I'm going to think that Nick Saban's on his way out.
Or, like, what does that say about his inability to bring the big name in?
Yeah.
Like, that would, to me, would be I struck out on a lot of these names.
Right.
And that would not be a good sign. And that'd like, that would not be great.
No, we expect Nick Saban, based on his tenure on at the offensive coordinator position, at least. Like, if he promotes on the defensive side, that's just what he did, right? He had Kirby forever. Kirby leaves. He promotes Pete Golding. Like, if they decide to promote internally on the defensive side, then I'm not going to be alarmed. Offensively, you've gone out and you've gotten Lane Kiffin. You've gone out and you've gotten Steve Sarkisian. You have gone out and gotten Bill O'Brien. Like, there is a trend of being able to go and get a name of someone who has either head coaching experience and or a good offensive reputation. If this is not a splashy hire, then I think that my warning signs and my alarm bells for Alabama might be ringing a little bit louder for sure.
Do you know what name I saw a couple people put this name out there? Oh, I got one for you. I got a legit one and one that I was surprised. Jeff Scott. Like, I was a little bit surprised that name was out there. I don't know if that would actually I don't think that would blow away Bama fans at all. But Joe Brady. What about Joe Brady, who's out there was the Bills quarterback coach this year. Of course, he had the 2019 run with Joe Brady, and like that trio might be the greatest trio in the history of college football. So that might have had something to do with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and Joe Burrow. But I think Joe Brady would be an attractive hire who hasn't, fared the way he wanted to in the NFL, but you bring him back in the SEC West, and he's going to have, you don't know if he's going to have that type of talent, but he's going to have some talent to work with.
Does Joe Brady look at Ken Dorsey and think that Ken Dorsey might be getting fired and Joe Brady could get a promotion pretty soon?
Possibly.
Because the way that things went for Buffalo, you cover the NFL for CBS Sports. You know this a little bit better, but didn't that Buffalo offense regress a little bit after Daboll left?
In the postseason, Josh Allen actually had the exact same 63% completion percentage, like 35 and 10 touchdowns. Last year it was 35 and 11. Like it's eerie how identical the numbers are, but there was a postseason collapse that was colossal. Last year he was 9 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. This year he was 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and a big reason why they got bounced at home. But yes, to your point, Brady might be looking around and just saying, okay, maybe if I just hold pat here, I could get to work with Josh Allen if Dorsey doesn't work out.
It's like, especially if Burrow and Chase and Jefferson keep balling, it's like, oh, hey, boss, I'm just sitting here watching the 2019 title game, just watching an offense that I played a key role in helping orchestrate and put together. I think Joe Brady would be a very good hire. That would be in line with one of the ones that has me being like, okay, all right, buckle up. Let's see what happens. Jeff Scott would not.
No.
Jeff Scott, listen, that was all set up for him to be able to, just go off and pave his own path. And I thought it was going to work out. I really, really did. Danny, I turned in a writing assignment for CBS Sports. It'll be up on the site later, grading coaches who just finished their 3rd year, like grading their 3-year tenure. He had 1 win against an FBS opponent in 30 games. And that was against Temple in the last year of Rod Carey being the head coach at Temple. There was just they flirted with Florida. It was that one game, where they got a little bit dicey with the Gators and they got a little close at Cincinnati. But man, that was just not a competitive team. I don't know what he's going to do for the year, but I do not think that would do much more for me other than say, okay, Jeff, I think you and I texted about this, but he did a good job of developing the wide receiver position at Clemson in a way that I do think he was missed. Mm-hmm. But I don't know if Jeff Scott would be the home run hire that I'd be looking for, especially with some of these other names that are out there right now.
Last thing before we move, what do you think timing on this? Like with it by Friday or like within a week?
I would not be surprised if we don't get an answer until even after National Signing Day. And I wanted to mention this too. Alabama has no coordinators. They are currently number 1 in the nation with a 28 commit signing class that includes 7 5-stars, 24 stars, and an average per player rating of 94.84.
That's insane. That's the power of Nick Saban.
You don't have coordinators, and it's like, nope, we're good.
Yeah.
No concerns, no flips. Everybody's good. Yeah, the average per player rating, 94.84, 7 5-stars, 24 stars, and just 1 3-star who I can only assume, I don't have the whole class pulled up. I've got to assume that's a long snapper or at least like a punter or a kicker or something. This is, like, to your point, the crux of your initial, if I remember correctly, the crux of your initial Alabama analysis was the 1-score games, right?
Yeah.
Just go back and say, okay,
right. It's like games where they used to bounce back after a loss and they'd be like a 19.5 point favorite and they'd win by 40. They would just dust the opponent. Like this year, it was almost like they played down to some of the competition. And it's just the dominance that was there where there was really 1 or 2 close games against really good opponents. Now all of a sudden, they're in a dogfight with Texas A&M when they were a 3-touchdown favorite, maybe 4.
Yeah. Will be very interesting. I agree with you. This is a crucial time for the Nick Saban era in the Alabama Crimson Tide, changing over both coordinators after back-to-back seasons where the margins between you and the competition have been narrowed significantly from where they were. All right, let's stay in the SEC real quick. Josh Heupel got a $4 million raise. Josh Heupel is now up to $9 million annually. The initial contract and the initial review that we had here on the Cover 3 podcast was, hey, he's going to have a fun offense and he'll sell tickets and it'll be a great bridge coach. This ain't bridge coach money, Danny. Do you think Josh Heupel is Tennessee's capital G guy moving on into the future?
This one, for me, my reaction to this has nothing to do with Josh Heupel and everything to do with the state of college football. And what are we doing? Why? Why is this necessary right now? Like, you couldn't have waited another year just to see if he could put a stamp on this season and build and have another really good season before you go back up the truck and put in these. The thing about it, to me, it's not so much the $9 million, because Mark Stoops just got $9 million at Kentucky. You know, like the going rate for the top tier of college football is 11, 12. That's Saban, that's Kirby, that's Dabo.
Right.
And then like there's this tier at 9, which I think even Mel Tucker might be at 9, right? 9.5 somewhere. So like, it's not the number, it's the lack of need to do this now, other than to just spend the money because you're flush with cash. And these schools, especially after coming off a season like that, game day was there twice. Ticket sales are through the roof. Admissions, I'm sure, are flying off the shelves. They're asking for money to pay for the goalpost, but that's a whole nother story. But like, there's a lot of influx of money. And Bud always says they're going to spend it because they have to. Like, they have to give it. At some point, is there going to be a point where schools realize, and maybe it's only when they have to, they're going to say, you know what, some of this money we should designate towards the players, because that gap keeps growing and growing. It's only going to make the crowd louder that says these players aren't getting paid anything. Even with NIL, there still are a significant portion of players who are making either zero or just a scholarship, or, you know, like a $25,000, you know, like blanket NIL deal across the board. But at some point, I do think these schools are going to wake up, either because they have to, or they're going to realize, you know what, like, coaching is important and we need a face of our program, but the roster is that much more important. And when you see checks starting to bounce and some of those funds not coming in at some of these collectives, I think the sooner these schools realize that, they're going to be better. You're better off. Because what Jimbo, was it after the 2020 year when they were on the cusp of the playoff?
Yeah.
And they were like, we love Jimbo. Let's go. Let's back it up. Let's fully guarantee his deal and add on another few years and bump him up to where he needs to be. Like, ask A&M how they're feeling about that deal now. To me, it's kind of just frivolous, nonsensical, like, spending. But you can do it. So it's not a Josh. Like, I think Josh Heupel's phenomenal. He did a great job, but it just seemed unnecessary. But yet it's what college football is right now.
I don't think there are many places that would do this. I think Tennessee's unique. I think that Tennessee has so much like around it. And the Tennessee fan base has been so hungry to experience what it got to experience on that day, that third Saturday in October. And that, like, the memories from that are the kind of things that go up in your facility. You know, that was the kind of thing that I think they were able to capitalize on from a fundraising standpoint. And on that fundraising note, I saw this report from Ross Dellinger. Shout out to Ross. He's a huge fan of the show. There is a new deal for athletic director Danny White as well that is, quote, according to Dellinger, believed to make him the highest paid SEC athletic director and one of the top 8 paid athletic directors nationally, a rolling 6-year contract worth $2.2 million. Remember, Danny White came from UCF. He hired Josh Heupel from UCF. It just kind of feels like everybody came to the table and they dumped out all the winnings from the season and we're just sliding it across. Yeah, it's like the scene in Training Day where they break in and they get all the money and, you know, they're banging the money together, throwing it to everybody. And I'll tell you what, there's no Ethan Hawke there who's going to refuse to take the money. This is like everyone is ready to accept the money that's being handed out from what has been a massive, massive year or two of fundraising, of success, and of excitement that's been building within that Tennessee community.
Flush with cash, and the new SEC contract money hasn't even hit the table yet. When that gets $100 million per school, like, there's plenty to go around. They have to spend it. I mean, that's what Bud Always' point is. So why not?
Jeez. Yeah. So I mean, congratulations to Josh Heupel. You got yourself a new lake house. Let's go.
Or two.
All right. One last little bit of news before we open up the big old bag of mail. And also, if you've got a question that is almost like a mailbag question, feel free to go ahead and drop it in. We'll hit one of these before the break. On the Pat McAfee show, where news is broken, Deion Sanders says that he hinted at Willie Taggart. Willie Taggart's could be walking through that door. Mike Zimmer could be walking through that door. We already know that the offensive coordinator is going to be Sean Lewis, the former head coach of Kent State. The defensive coordinator for the Buffs is going to be Charles Kelly. Do you foresee Deion rounding out this staff with a couple former head coaches? Willie Taggart, of course, just fired from FAU. Mike Zimmer was an analyst, I believe, or on the staff with him at Jackson State.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of Deion rounding out this staff potentially with some big names?
I mean, should we even be surprised at all with what's transpired so far? I mean, he really is. I was in SoFi with Klatt, and I talked to him about it a little bit, and he's like, I don't know if it's going to work, but he's already doing what we want him to do. Like, he's making Colorado relevant. He's bringing players. He's bringing staff members. Even Tim Brewster, who we had the little scuffle back and forth, the little Twitter words, which I didn't mean to offend anybody as bad as they offended him. Like, he's a well-respected coach who's one of the better recruiters that are out there. Willie Taggart coming, exceptional recruiter, and a name brand like Buzzy. And I know it didn't go great at the end of Florida State, and there's a lot of Florida State fans that aren't thrilled with him, and they'd be like, good, take him. He's still a buzzy name that like creates a talking point. It creates like a flat, like, yeah, I'm not surprised that anybody would come. If Mike Zimmer was willing to be an analyst on his staff at Jackson State, why wouldn't he do it at Colorado? Like, it's of course, like, yeah, he's going to bring in exactly what they want him to do. Now the question is, what do you do once the play starts? Like, that to me is the only, like, that's why I can't wait to get there, because there's going to be so much talk, and we're going to talk about it all throughout the season.
Yep.
But yeah, he's going to deliver on a lot. I mean, he delivered at Jackson State, and he's going to deliver at Colorado, and maybe he's over exceeding expectations, because I think early was like, well, Boulder, it's hard to get kids to go there. Coaching, recruiting's hard. I think people want to follow Deion. He's got a little Pied Piper to him, like, hey, come follow me. And coaches are smart. They know that there's going to be a lot of attention, and their names are going to recirculate as well and be in the football conversation, which is good for everybody. It's good for Colorado, and it's good. It's kind of like when you go be a coach at Bama. And I'm not saying Deion is Nick Saban, but we all kind of know Saban's staff more so than a lot of schools. And I think we're going to know Deion's staff more so than a lot of schools, because they're going to get talked about a lot.
Well, on that note, coming up on the other side, we open up the big old bag of mail, beginning with a question about Shedeur Sanders, Deion's son, in the quarterback battle for the Buffs in 2023. All that and more next.
Aren't you tired of the same old boring lives? Let's go to the Super Bowl.
I'm in.
On February 3rd.
I'm taking this one. He's cute.
Best friends.
So you don't have any tickets? Let's make a run.
Hey, let's go, Golden Girl.
Get into the best trouble.
Oh, thank you. These are good. Careful, they're high dosage.
You here for the poker game?
I'm Guy Fieri.
If you did this to give us something to remember, it worked.
80 for Brady. Only in theaters February 3rd. Rated PG-13.
Back here on the Cover 3 podcast, opening up the big old bag of mail. And again, if you're watching live, feel free to drop a question in there. We will hit some listener questions from the chat as well throughout this podcast segment. We begin. Best way to do it, leave a 5-star review, and then in that review, put your question. First one. Does Shedeur Sanders really deserve to start at Colorado, and will Colorado really be that good? I know they are hyped up with Deion and just landed Cormani McClain, but they lack depth and really don't seem like they will be much better than last year. Just want to know, how is Colorado supposed to compete against the big boys next season in the Pac-12? I'll tackle the first part. Shedeur Sanders does deserve to start, because to my eye, Shedeur Sanders is the most talented option that they have in that quarterback room.
Yes. I don't like the way he was announced as a starter, though.
Fair.
I think Deion, if you want to set a precedent of competing, which is every good team ever been, you got to compete and earn your job. And I think after he introduced him, he did try to say that. He's like, he's going to compete. But he introduced him as this is our starting quarterback. So it's kind of hard to go back on that. Why I think guys have left.
I think, Dad, chill.
Right. Exactly.
But
But then he would have said, Dad, stop talking about number 2 that way. He's not like he's cut from the same cloth, right? He's ready for it. But he's a 4-star, which is probably the best quarterback they've had there in a while. I'm just going to go out on a limb and guess. He produced and put up really good numbers when he was at Jackson State. And I get that the competition wasn't there. I'll tell you what, I did not break down a lot of Jackson State film, but I did watch their bowl game. And it was impressive, like orchestrating the offense, running the 2-minute drill. He made some really good throws at the end of the game. So I'd like the question, does he deserve to start, or is he good enough to start? Absolutely. Like, deserve to me is an interesting question, because I think he should start as the first stringer and keep his job, which really doesn't matter who you are. I mean, at every place I've ever been, like, you had to earn your keep. And I think that's what Deion will do. But yeah, like, I don't think it's nepotism. I don't think it's like he handed, he's not going to hand the reins to, I mean, he didn't even admit it. He's like, one of my boys isn't good enough, so he's not here. Like, in his press conference, I think he's like, yeah, we got Shedeur here. He's like, the other one, he's not good enough, so he stayed behind. Like, he's not going to just put him out there if he can't play.
I do think they were only a 1-win team last year. So the part about they don't seem like they will be much better than last year, I disagree with that. I think they will be much better. The problem is how you can very, very quickly go from 1 win, one of the worst Power 5 teams in the entire country, to being competitive against the Pac-12. But where does that show up in the win count against a schedule that includes at TCU, Nebraska, and Colorado State in the non-con, and against a schedule in conference play, 9-game conference schedule that has at Oregon, USC at home, at UCLA, at Utah, and Oregon State at home. This is a schedule where I believe that they will be much better, capital M, much better, but they might still be a 4-8, 5-7 team.
Which is right around where their win total, which opened at 3.5, is up to 4.5, was pegged. What about this, though? Like, one of the biggest turnarounds. I'll say, if you want to see, let me try to go back, because that was his first year. So Lance Leipold took over Kansas in one of the worst, I would say, before there was Colorado this year, there was Kansas a year, but when Lance Leipold took it over, an even way worse situation. He took over it after spring football. Like, it was late in the game, and it took him 2 years to see that turnaround really come to fruition. What was it, 2 wins the first year, and then this past season they go bowling? Like, that's a realistic expectation for Deion. What I think is going to be interesting is because he gets so much attention and so much conversation. I mean, I've already seen the visceral reaction to either you say, like, Joe Klatt says they're going to be in the playoff contention year 2, or if I say, here's a coach that this wouldn't work in the NFL, and you just see the reaction. If they're 3 wins this year, which is better, and you could see progress, it was a waste of money. Like, what are you doing with Deion? But that would be progress. And then if you saw 6 wins the next season, that would be incredible progress. But I don't know if it's going to be enough for the Deion critics. But I do think they'll be better. I'm with you. It's just going to be really, my inclination is to hammer the under of 4.5 that first year. But I'd still be a little bit nervous.
Oh, see, I already know that Bud's going to be on the under, so I've decided I'm taking the over. I want to be under. Yeah, I'm just going to be vibes and hype. And so, yeah, I'm probably just going to take the over just to be able to ride it the entire way and just be along for the entertainment value. Speaking of entertainment value, the first game is at TCU. That's on the road. The second game of the season is the very first home game, and that is going to be against the Nebraska Cornhuskers. This is, of course, a renewal of a rivalry that's been going on for a very long time. Nebraska will be in year 1 with Matt Rule. Matt Rule has been making some references to his coaching style and how it compares to other coaching styles. Matt Rule says, I'm not going to be the type of coach with a camera crew following me. If you come to Nebraska, you're not going to have cameras all around. That's just not the way we do things. To which I go to the microwave, I put in my popcorn, and I get very, very excited because it is January 25th, and Deion Sanders and Matt Rule already have the seedlings of Smack Talk heading into a massive home opener for Coach Prime and the Buffs on September 9th. Give me Colorado in the points. Let's go.
Run, Ralphie, run.
Let's go.
Is he still running or did they retire him? He's still running, right?
He still runs. And the thing that he and Deion have in common is they both got 8 toes.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Well, that's because Deion had to have his removed, right?
Yeah.
He had some issue.
He was talking to the trainer of Ralphie, and he was saying, he was like, man, I'm really nervous. You know, he's 800 pounds, you know, like this is making me feel really uncomfortable. And he said that he said, Ralphie runs out first. Oh, good. So Ralphie's not running behind me. And he was getting more details about Ralphie, and Ralphie's trainer says, you know, he's got 8 toes. And Deion's like, how about that? Ralphie and I have something in common. I've got 8 toes too.
He's going to be great.
Yeah.
Game day will probably be there, right? Don't you think they got to jump on it early before their season falls apart? Like there's no question.
I mean, if game day wants to be like totally sell out, just do the first 2 games. I mean, it's not like TCU is lacking in hype either. Just go on.
Matt Rule, by the way, he doesn't have cameras. He goes in disguise. Did you see that story? Did you see the story The Athletic put out? It was like when it was like I think it was
for the
34 days. The 34 days behind Matt Rule's search for the perfect landing spot. And it said he put on like shades and a hat and walked around Lincoln unnoticed with his wife as they just wanted to take in the scene and explore and get the experience. And he just knew it was from him because he went. I was in the back of my mind. I'm like, did Matt Rule really need a disguise in Lincoln? Like
cool.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure you feel really, really secret agent on that one. Good job, Matt. All right, let's go ahead. I got a couple questions from the chat, sort of stemming back to some of our earlier conversation. This one, since we were talking about Alabama and this being a crucial point for the Nick Saban era, question from LSU versus Farr. What's up? Thanks for watching. Do we think Alabama has at least one more national championship under Saban?
If we did not have change, I would say no. But because we're getting 12 teams, he's going to get more opportunities, and I think he'll get another one.
The chances are better that Alabama gets knocked off on a Saturday in October or November, preventing a title run, than if you let that Alabama team get into a playoff and then allow them to prepare for all of these games and go out there and compete.
Like they could be a 9-3 national champion, you know, and then by the time the season's over, what would that be? 12-3, you know, 13 and whatever, how many games they have to go through to get there. They could be 9-3 regular season and get hot and figure it out. That like this year's team, like Nick Saban wasn't wrong when he was out there politicking and making the case for his team. They would have had a great chance to win it all, but they had to do it on the field to get there. Now you just have to get a seat at the table. I mean,
the largest bracket that we have, the most popular bracket that we have in American sports is the NCAA tournament. And even like the Cinderella years when it's UConn, who just happens to come off the 8 seed and then or the 7 or 8 seed and make it all the way to the national championship. You know, Kentucky coming off the 8 line, North Carolina coming off the 8 line. Like according to your seed, it was a Cinderella story, but then you look up and you realize who the program is, and it's, you know, it will be Alabama. I'm with you. Expanded playoff increases the chance for one more title under Nick Saban. This next question coming from Craig. How important was Kirby to Alabama's success? Since he left for Georgia, he nearly beat Alabama in year 2 with Mark Richt's players, and Alabama's only other title is the COVID year. 17 was beating Georgia. 18, you lose to Clemson. 19 is LSU. 20 is the COVID year. Yeah.
I mean, clearly he was a big factor. He was a big role in it. I mean, he's the defensive coordinator for a large part of that run.
See, I'm going to push back on the idea that the only other year was the COVID year when they played for the national championship as a 14-0 undefeated team in 2018. The fact that they played for the national championship in 2021 and beat Georgia in the SEC championship in that season. I think that they've had enough cracks at it since Kirby left for Georgia to try and say that Kirby was the secret sauce in Alabama's success.
20%.
C plus.
Yes. 20% of the success goes to Kirby.
Let's dip back into the big old bag of mail. This question is from Ryan. Hey guys, love the pod as always. It's great during final season. Hope you aced all your exams. I have the most important question of all. Who would win a golf weekend between the four of y'all? I feel like the favorite is Danny, but I like dark horse candidate Tom.
Wow.
It'd be,
well, first of all, Tom's got to get on the mend. Like his back's been messed up. Although I have a bad back too, but I can load up on Advil and suck it up and play through the pain.
And get
he
the
needs to take off from shows.
Don't you take the Theragun on the course?
Oh, all the time.
Yeah, you got the rangefinder, the Theragun. You got like a whole.
It's the new part of the golf bag. Like it just stays in there all the time. The Theragun. Bud might be sneaky good.
If we're playing with handicaps, then it would be a little more interesting. I think Danny's definitely the betting favorite if we're just playing everything straight up.
Yeah, but we'd have to get strokes. That'd be fun.
Yeah,
we'll have to do it. You guys need to come down to South Florida. Come down my way. We'll go get a game in. We'll do some work. We'll act like we're working. Come do a show.
Well, we'll get somebody to film us and like everyone can watch it. Easy Cover 3 content. All right, here's Ryan's question. I think it's interesting. But in all seriousness, I know that sometimes a school's brand, meaning like the apparel brand, plays a big role in basketball. But I was wondering if that was the case in college football. There are a ton of factors in a recruit's decision where to go. And I was wondering if this makes any difference. I was only wondering because all of the college football playoff national champions have been Nike schools, and a vast majority of the playoff teams are also Nike schools.
No, does that include Jordan? Like, because I'm assuming because Oklahoma's been Jordan when they were in the playoffs, weren't they? Was that after? It might have been.
Might have been just after. But I still factor in because Michigan's a Jordan school. I still call that Nike. Florida's a Jordan school. Still call that Nike. Oklahoma, yeah, I would say so.
But I think there's a difference between Jordan and Nike. I think Jordan is cooler with the kids than Nike is. Some kids now, like I saw some sort of research, marketing research said Adidas was catching up like to all of them. But I think that actually might have been Yeezy, which made it cool. So that's fallen by the wayside. Yeah. Maybe they're kind of falling down. I don't think it matters as much. I think you just have to you have to keep up with the Joneses. Like, make sure you got your uniform rotation. Make sure you have some cool, sandstorm outfit. You got to you just have to have what everybody else has. If you don't have that, it could be problematic. I don't think the kids care that much if there's a Jordan logo, a Nike logo, an Adidas logo, Under Armour logo, as long as they got what everybody else has. Does that make sense? There might be a slight difference in some, but I don't think it matters as much as when Oregon made it cool and they were the trendsetter and they had all these different color combos. I don't think it matters as much.
I think it matters in basketball because these shoe companies invest in individuals and in basketball. Yeah. And they don't do it in football. They're not out there writing these huge shoe deals and these huge apparel contracts and linking you up for football cleats. It's just a different ball game. And I think that when a college basketball player is, first of all, they start in the AAU circuit. That's when these shoe companies start to identify you. They want you to be coming to the Under Armour camp or the Under Armour tournament. They want you to be coming to the Nike camp or the Jordan camp, all those things. And so they want to be able to go ahead and get in front of you so that if you are one of the ones that makes it all the way through the process and is selected in the NBA draft, you're going to want to come and sign with them. There's just more money being paid by these apparel companies to individual players in basketball than in football. You have a couple quarterbacks, might come out there and be super popular. I don't know how many commercials with college football players I see for like a Nike ad, right? I feel like it's few and far between in almost all quarterbacks. And so that's why, to your point, you want to make sure you don't look janky. You want to make sure you don't have stuff that is downright like, embarrassing. But
I don't want to bag them. Like if you had LA Fitness or, like Fila's making a comeback. But I'm trying to think of like some janky brand that wouldn't.
We made fun of
everybody's
Russell,
got like,
We made fun of Russell Athletic forever when Russell Athletic was with Georgia Tech, right?
Yeah.
Or we embraced it. But
the other thing too is you mentioned about football versus basketball. I don't know how this ever changes because I guarantee you football players would love to get into some of this money, but you can't wear cleats on the street. You can wear your LeBrons, your Greek Freak, you can wear your Zion, like you can wear everybody's basketball shoe around and you can't football. So I don't know if the market's there. Maybe somebody will figure it out, but until they do.
All right, let's do one more from the chat says, question. Which of these teams has the best potential to win a playoff game this year? This year, of course, being 2023, the last year of the 4-team playoff model. And the options that Sean has dropped in this question from the live chat are Oregon, Notre Dame, Florida State, Texas, Tennessee, and USC. Again, that is Oregon, Notre Dame, Florida State, Texas, Tennessee, and USC. Which of these teams has the best potential to win a playoff game this year?
I think it's easy. Do you?
Do you think it's USC? No brainer?
I do. Because but you were down on USC, aren't you? I just see Caleb Williams. I know the Pac-12. See, that might be the issue is that the Pac-12 with these kind of 4 to 5 good teams at the top could see some carnage. They knock each other out kind of like they do every other year that they've been in the conversation. So does that open up the door to somebody else? And then the second best, I might go with Notre Dame because of Sam Hartman. Like in his eyes, no.
Yeah, if we're going to go second best, I think you got to go Florida State or Texas.
All right. I didn't want to be the homer. I would take Florida State over Texas because at least like they have to have dramatic improvement at quarterback, whether it's Quinn Ewers or it's Arch Manning. Texas they need to get it in gear, like at quarterback and offense and just in totality. FSU still lost 3 games last year in a row. The NC State one, they probably should have won, but they still lost. So they have to make big strides. Notre Dame had 2 ugly losses. I think it's USC. Then I think it's Notre Dame or Florida State.
USC is good offense beats good defense. That is your pitch. The idea that USC is going to be able to make it into, after coming like so close, like a pulled hamstring away from making the college football playoff in 2022, that they make the college football playoff and having Caleb Williams and whatever improvements are made on the defensive side of the football, that the Trojans are able to win a game. USC does seem like the right answer, but I'm going to go with Florida State as the second answer because I think it is the more well-rounded team, and the 3-game losing streak also came with a lot of injuries.
Yep.
And there's something to be said for what's happening in Tallahassee right now. And if they do get into the playoff, what the Seminoles might be able to do. I'm going to scratch Oregon because I'll cut Oregon first. I think they're going to be a really, really good football team, but I don't know if I'm so overwhelmed by the depth chart as I look at it that I'm going to be.
Then is it Tennessee?
Then is it Tennessee or Notre Dame?
See, I'm higher on Notre Dame, I think, than you.
Yeah.
Tennessee, too, you got to go through the gauntlet of the SEC. And you got to, like, how the Joe Milton experience is going to work out is beyond anyone's guess. It's going to be a wild ride. And they got incredible play, consistent, accurate play from Hendon Hooker. And he looked good. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, Joe Milton looked good. Maybe he's learned. He's grown up. But also, who's catching the ball for him this year? I guess you just have to trust they'll find another one.
Oh, they got Brew McCoy. Brew McCoy has the stamps in his college passport are awesome, right?
Yeah, he's the king of the portal. I mean, they should rename it the Brew McCoy portal. I think didn't you say that one time on here?
Yeah, you go do a spring at Texas, commit to USC, do a spring at Texas, go back to USC, do 3 years. I seriously think he might have been in like the recruiting class of 2015, but Brew McCoy is your answer for who might be out there as the most important wide receiver there and the best option that they have. So interesting question. USC does feel like the easy answer, but then after that, a lot to debate and a lot to chew on as we go into it. We will be back Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern time with, I think, Danny, we can say that the coaching carousel is done. I think that we can finally do our final recap and analysis of the coaching carousel. So we will do that Thursday, 11 a.m. Eastern time. Come and hang out and watch with us live as we break down all of the coaching changes from this past coaching cycle. And you can follow him on Twitter at Danny Cannell. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. Danny, thank you very much.
See ya.